Everybody, thank you for joining us. We'll begin with chapter 3, verse 7. Chapter 3, verse 7, Moshe has seen the burning bush. Moshe has come over to the bush. God has already spoken to Moshe. And now we get to the real brass tacks of what Hashem is going to say to him. And verse 7, Hashem says, Vayomer Hashem, Ro Ra'isi Esani Ami Asher b'Mitzrayim. I have seen the affliction of my nation in Egypt. Ve'estzakosam shamati b'nei noksav, and I have heard their cries because of those who have afflicted them. Ki yadati yismachovav, because I have known their pain. Verse 8, Vo'ereid la'atzilo mi'ad Mitzrayim la'aloso min ha'aretz ha'hiel ha'aretz tovar chava el eretz avas chalav u'dvash, and I'm coming down to bring them from that land to this wonderful good land. And verse 9, I've heard the cries of Bnei Israel. And verse 10, so Moshe, here's where you fit into this. You're going to go to Paro, and you're going to get the Jewish people out of Egypt. A technical point, I don't want to belabor the point more, but if you glance through the psukim in this section, generally speaking, Hashem is referred to as Elokim in these psukim. But in verse 7, it's Hashem says it to Moshe. Why, in general, in this section, is he referred to as Elokim? But in Pasuk Zayin, he's referred to as Hashem. A very brief and interesting Ramban on Pasuk Zayin, Vayomer Hashem, Yazkirenu b'midas rachamim, b'inyan hachemla al ha'am. Specifically, the name of Hashem is used to evoke and to represent the midah, the divine attribute of mercy, that Hashem is looking to the nation with mercy. So in general, this section is with the name of Elokim. It's very much about the difficulty of what Hashem has done to the Jewish people, what Hashem will do to the Egyptians. But the overarching concept of why Hashem is speaking to Moshe is his mercy for the Jewish people. Which is an interesting point. Okay, moving on to verse 18. So Hashem has gone further. Hashem tells Moshe how he's supposed to present himself to the people and say that he's been sent by God and he's going to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. And now it says in verse 18, Vishamu l'kolecha, they're going to listen to you. Uvasa atav z'gnei Yisrael melech Mitzrayim, you'll come along with the elders to the king of Egypt. V'amartem elav, and you'll say to him, Hashem Elokeinu Ivrim Nikro Aleinu, Hashem, the God of the Jews, has come upon us. The Jewish people will buy in. You'll go to Paro. You'll ask to be freed and to go into the desert to worship God. What does it mean when God says that the Jewish people will listen to Moshe? Is this prophecy that God is conveying to Moshe? Is this Hashem understands the nature of the people? Is this something else? So if you look at the Ramban on verse 18, Vishamu l'kolecha, so he starts off by citing Rashi, Me'elan, they're just going to listen to you. No divine influence. It's just going to be, they're just going to listen to you. Why? Why should Moshe be so sure? Why would it be so natural for them to listen to Moshe? Miyad yishma'u l'kolecha. This is this famous thing that Moshe should use the language pakod pokadati, that God says, I've remembered you. The moment you've used that language, they will accept what you're saying. Shekvar siman zeh masur biyadam miyakov u'miyosef. They've heard this language from Yaakov, from Yosef, and that's the code. The moment you use that language, it's been passed out to the generations. They will know that you're the real deal. Okay. That's Rashi, skipping a line or two. Ula yidrosh harav ki Yosef Omar pamayim pakod yifkod lagidrois amasoras biyodo me'aviv. So he says maybe the pshat is that Yosef said it more than once, the language of Pakod Yifkod, that God will remember you. And the fact that he more than once said that language maybe is conveying to the Jewish people that there's a weight to this language. Be'elish mos rabba miyad v'shamel kolecha lama shemasoras kula hi biyadam shkol goel sheyavo v'yomer lahem pekida kvulahu goel shel emes. The Medrash says very similar to what Rashi cited, that they just know if somebody uses a double language of Pakod Yifkod, some variation on that, they're the one. V'yesh alecha lishol. You've got to ask the question. I'm sure this question is occurring to many of you. Uminayim lahem sheyaminu. Why? Why should they believe that? Shema Moshe b'Mesoras Hazos Kamosam. Maybe Moshe has the same tradition that they do. You know, could you imagine somebody there? There are people waiting forever, it feels like forever, for the Redeemer to come, and they all look at each other and say, but we know if there's a certain phrase that they use, that means they're not a charlatan and they're for real. Guess what? Maybe the charlatan knows that that's the phrase. If everybody knows what the right phrase is, so what kind of code is that? Yesh lomar kach kiblu miyosef sheshama pi hanavi aviyam sharishon sheyavo v'yomer lem b'loshen hazeh hu yiyeh hagoel osam gali v'yadu lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu shelo yavo adam v'yichazek b'hem v'kach hivtivam. So the Ramban starts off, he says, maybe the answer to the question is, this is what they were told as a prophecy. And you can ask whatever question you want on it, but if they want to believe the prophecy of God, they've got to believe the prophecy of God. And maybe Yosef just told them, listen, it might sound strange, but I'm just telling you, this is a message from God. If somebody uses this language, even though it might sound strange, because all of you know it, but the bottom line is, if someone uses this language, God will make sure that the only person who uses this language is the real deal. That's maybe the answer. Fascinating medrash. Medrash says, as we discussed yesterday, Moshe was 12 years old when he totally left, right? He went to see what was going on with the Jews, and he killed an Egyptian, and soon after he had to leave. Lama, why did God orchestrate it that Moshe should leave the Jewish people at such a young age? She'ilu gidel b'beis aviv v'yavo v'amar ubom v'amar lemamasim lo hayuma minim bo. Because if he would have lived in his parents' house until the age of 62, and then come and made his pitch to the Jewish people, they wouldn't have believed him. Shahayu omrim aviv misaram lo. They would say, oh, are you kidding? His father told him what to say. Yosef Masra Levi, Velevi Likahas, Kosla Amram, went down through the generations what to say. It's an amazing measure to think about in terms of God running the world. There are so many times in our lives that things happen or other people's lives. Why would this be happening? And this is an amazing medrash, that the terrible thing of Moshe Rabbeinu spending decades of his life away from his people was for this reason. That's what the Medrash suggests. Of course, no one really knows, but it's something to think about. Maybe, says the Medrash, this is why he was separated from his family. See, he's coming from outer space as far as they're concerned. He's been off in the land of Midian for over 6 years. When he says these things, that's why they believed him. So really interesting Ramban to think about. And just broadly speaking, one answer that he gives is, this is the prophecy, and Hashem is saying, no one's going to trick you. The other answer is maybe the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was away from them for so long and he still knew what to say. That's the proof that he's for real. Okay, moving on to chapter 4, verse 1. It's actually a very interesting juxtaposition to what we just spoke about, though there's a number of psukim in between, something like 4 or 5 psukim in between. Vayan Moshe vayomer. Moshe responds and he says, "V'hein lo yaminu li." They're not going to believe me. V'lo yishma'u b'koli. They won't listen to my voice. Ki yomru, they'll say, Lo nireh lecha Hashem. God didn't appear to you. So God says, V'shamu l'kolecha. They're going to listen to you. We read the pasuk a moment ago. They're going to listen to you. Whatever you say, but God said it's a statement of fact. They're going to listen to you. Moshe Rabbeinu says, nah, it's not going to happen. How could Moshe Rabbeinu say that to Hashem? He has this miracle, this burning bush. He's the master of the universe. And you say, nah, I don't think you're right, God. What does that mean? What do the words mean? Ramban and Pasuk Aleph. Vayan Moshe vayomer v'hem lo yaminu li v'lo yishmu b'koli. Osa shah diber Moshe shelo kahogan. So he starts off by saying that at that moment, Moshe said something inappropriate. He's citing a medrash. HaKadosh Baruch Hu amar lo v'shamu l'kolechem. God said to listen to you. For who amar v'hem lo yaminu li. Moshe said, no, they won't. Miyad hashiva HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shitasu. So now God doesn't leave it as is. God sort of, indulges Moshe on this path of discussion. V'nasan lo osos lefi dvarav. And he gives him signs to prove himself. So even though Hashem says they're going to listen to you, Moshe says, I don't think they're going to listen to me. So Hashem says, fine. He doesn't argue the point. He says, I'm going to give you ways to prove to them. This is the whole thing with the staff and the snake and the hand. You can look at the parsha for yourselves. For Rabbi Avram Amar al derech hapshat, ki Hashem Amar she'aminu bo haskenim, rak lo hiskir she'aminu ha'am, o she'yishmu l'kolo, so the Ibn Ezra has a very interesting pshat. The Ibn Ezra says Moshe Rabbeinu was not saying anything inappropriate here because God says they will listen to you. Who's they? Says the Ibn Ezra, maybe they is the elders. Maybe it doesn't mean the whole nation. And then what Moshe is saying in our verse is, it's very nice that the elders will believe me, but what about everybody else? And I just want to sharpen the point of the Ibn Ezra. We read the psukim very quickly, but if you look back in verse 18, I'm sorry, right afterwards, God says the elders will come with you to Paro. So maybe what it means is the elders will accept you and they'll go with you to Paro. And so now Moshe follows up and says, yeah, but what about everybody else? You didn't talk about that. How are the rest of it? And so then Hashem says to them, you know what? Good point. Here's what I'm going to do to prove it to you to the rank and file of the people. It's one possibility. The other possibility the Ibn Ezra says is they'll listen to him, but maybe they won't fully accept it. Which, of course, we can all relate to that. Ramban says, I don't think that's the pshat. Rak Sava. The Ramban says maybe the pshat is they'll listen to you, it's incumbent upon them to listen to you. They're supposed to listen to you. Not that God is saying it as a statement of fact, but this is their job. Maybe it's appropriate that they should listen to you. That's what the Ramban suggests as a possibility. Skip about 4 lines. Vanacham be'enai says what I think the pshat is. Ki v'shamu l'kolecha lavo imcha el hamelech v'leimor lo elokei oivrim nikrolim. Maybe what it means to listen to you is they'll agree to come with you to the king. Ki ma yafsidu. Moshe wants to have a town hall meeting of the Jews with Paro, so they'll listen to you. They'll come along with you to talk to Paro. V'nei Hashem hodio ki lo yiteinu sam melech b'tzorayim la'aloch. But right afterwards, God says, by the way, he's not going to say yes. They'll come with you. They'll make a pitch together with you, but he's going to turn you all down. Don't be disheartened by that. So then Moshe says, wow, so I'm going to convince them to come with me to Paro. Paro's going to turn us down. Now what's the people's reaction going to be? I accept that they'll accept me before we go into Paro, but once it's not easy street, what will they do now? They'll reject me, which is not disagreeing with what Hashem said. It's the next step of the story. Ki yomru lo nirei lecha Hashem. She'ilu ha'yisa shliach Hashem lo yamra Paro's Pharaoh. They'll say to him, you're not for real. We thought you were for real, but if you were God's messenger, it should be a lot easier to get us out of here. We were supposed to go into Paro's palace and he'd let us go right away. That didn't happen. So that's the pshat of the Ramban. So I just want to sum up this Ramban. So one pshat is he just said the wrong thing. It was disrespectful to Hashem. The next possibility, what the Ibn Ezra says, is Hashem was telling him the elders will listen to you. And he's saying, but what about everybody else? The next possibility the Ramban raises is that it's not saying they will listen to you, it's that they should listen to you. And then the pshat the Ramban really thinks is correct is he accepts that they'll listen to go with him to Paro. But once they've left paradise and Paro says, are you kidding? I've never heard something so preposterous in my life. That's when he says that they'll reject me. So all these things are interesting ideas. We discussed Ramban regarding why he's referred to as Hashem and not Elokim in the Psukim. In that first passage that we saw, we discussed how they'll know that the sign is a sign if everybody knows that it's a sign. And then we've discussed this thing when Moshe Rabbeinu ultimately says they're not going to listen to me.